Thank you all for coming. We have Parshas Bamidbar first coming up, and then, of course, right after that, the Yom Tov of Shavuos. In honor of Shavuos, my wife actually spoke today to Beis Yaakov High School. And of course, I, being a good husband, went along and videoed the whole thing from the back. No one noticed me. Just kidding. So she spoke about the pasuk in Mishlei. Pasuk tells us, Kiner mitzvah v'Torah or. The mitzvah is like a candle and Torah is like a light. And the question is, what exactly is this pasuk telling us? Ner mitzvah v'Torah or. Mitzvah is like a candle and Torah is like a light. So she explained it with a mashal. Imagine a small child having trouble going to sleep at night because it's dark in the room. And every time the mother exits the room, the child is scared of the dark. Many children experience this. Child screams out for the mother. Mother comes back, says, that's not a monster, that's just your clothes hanging over a rack. And so on, it goes on and on throughout the course of the night. Finally, the mother says, here, take this flashlight. Anytime you're worried that something looks scary, just shine the flashlight on it. Mother closes the door, and immediately the child shines the flashlight on this and on that. It's constantly shining the flashlight on different objects in the room. And finally, the child realizes, why should I keep doing this? I might as well just turn the lights on. And so the child just leaves the lights on for the night. When we do mitzvahs, we're actually uncovering, perhaps in a little bit of a superficial way, because we don't see it really. Certainly we don't fully see it. But when we do mitzvahs, we're actually uncovering a deeper reality behind what otherwise would be a mundane object. And when we learn Torah and understand Torah and work at Torah, it's like we're turning on the lights. The mitzvah is the candle. It allows you to shine a flashlight on a particular object and have a little bit of a better appreciation, understanding for what is really the reality of that otherwise superficial, mundane object. Torah turns on the lights and sheds light on everything. So that's what I want to talk to you tonight a little bit about. When we look at the world that we live in, from the smallest details of our day to the big decisions we make and accomplishments we have, there's always a deeper reality to it, beyond what our five senses can give us sensory input and information towards. And it's so easy to forget because we're not consciously, constantly reminded of it. Our taste buds remind us every day the tastes of food. Our eyes and nose remind us every day of how things look and smell. Our fingers can always remind us and do always remind us every day of how something feels. But to really be in touch with that deeper reality of the world, the spiritual reality of the world, which is really the more real reality of the world, the irony of it is that that more real reality of the world is less perceptible and less obvious to us on a daily basis. It is through mitzvahs and Torah that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us such gifts that we're able to connect and have a better appreciation for it. But how do we do that? It's really hard to feel it for the reasons I just mentioned. It's not tangible. How do we really feel that and begin to recognize it? So we discussed in the past chaburos, objective morality versus subjective morality, that the Torah and the wisdom of the Ribbono Shalom, his infinite wisdom that he gives us in terms of choosing who should you save first when posed with such questions we've discussed, with these ethical dilemmas that philosophers debate and have no clear-cut answers to, but of course we do because of the Torah, because of the infinite wisdom the Ribbono Shalom gave us to answer such questions. And only he could properly answer them. We're able to have guidance and avoid the confusion that so many people are shrouded in darkness and confusion when it comes to basic questions like animal rights versus human rights. Last year, I think it was, people being all upset that zookeepers shot a gorilla and killed the gorilla when at any moment that gorilla was holding a little tiny baby and could have killed the baby in an instant. And the zookeepers felt they had no choice but to shoot and kill the gorilla as a way of saving that baby. Some, rightfully so, praised the zoo for its fast action. Some were upset. Maybe you could have tried to tranquilize the gorilla. Why did you have to kill it? Maybe you could have walked over to the gorilla and talked some sense into it. Who knows what? But you don't have to go kill the gorilla. But of course, with the Torah's objective morality given to us, that's a non-starter. If there's a suffix pikuach nefashos for a human being, of course that takes precedent over an animal rights, right? Without getting into the strict halacha of the question in terms of yid and non-yid, and if there's any over the avodah zarah issues, let's just talk about animal versus human being. The distinction couldn't be more clear in the Torah, categorically. Of course, marriage rights, understanding the definition of marriage. Does marriage nowadays have anything to do with having children anymore? Of course, when you talk about marriage, the term marriage being used when it's not a male and a female, obviously it has nothing to do with having children. It's biologically impossible. But even with males and females, it's so much of a secondary, or, you say third, if you want to say first, secondary, tertiary. It's not even that. It's not something that's even on the minds of people, many people, when they get married. That maybe some people, maybe women more than men, but in general, marriage is disconnected from having children. It has very little to do with that. It's the relationship between the husband and wife. And of course, that's a big part of it, of course. But nowadays, the confusion is thick. And no longer are some very obvious and clear concepts clear at all. And it is the Torah, the Ribbon Shalom giving us that wisdom through the Torah that gives us clarity. It's the Torah or. We also discussed in the past that whenever you're learning Torah, even if it seems to be about something so disconnected from your everyday lives, about Choshen Mishpat details, the ox gores, the person stole, about different forms of strange and unique marriages and divorces and all sorts of halachos and parts of the Torah that we learn that seemingly have no application to our life. But we discussed that to know is to love. That the Ribbon Shalom's ratzon is in the Torah. This is how he wants this case to be decided, and we're learning about it. We're getting to know that halacha. We're getting to know Hashem. To know is to love. We thereby can connect to and have a more deeper and meaningful relationship with Hashem, as we said over with the Snapple, Mushel in the past. So Torah knowledge refines our morality. It gives us objective morality, and it deepens our relationship with Hashem. But how does it allow us practically to see more clearly? So I think there are two answers to that question. And I think that it yields something we should practically do this Shavuos and every Shavuos, and something really we should practically do every day. So on a surface level, the easier to understand and more easier to grasp, more tangible answer is when you learn Torah and you're taught by Chashav Rebbeim and Chashav Sfarim and you're guided by Gedolim as to how to really learn through a sugya and come to a conclusion, how to really understand something, be'iyun, how to really gather information, be'kiyas. Under the right guidance, it takes time. And it takes maturity, but eventually you get into the mode and into the habit. The people who end up really learning well get into the habit of learning for truth's sake. L'man ha'emes. Every single person, everyone to different extent, we discussed this in the past too, has within them themselves and their opinion and their want and even need to be right when they're learning. And the wisdom of learning with chavrusa for a large percentage of time of your day is that it forces you to have to deal with someone else's opinion. And really, when you're learning Gemara by yourself, the whole ASEC, your entire time is really being spent analyzing all the different opinions that are being presented to you, and then you trying to properly understand those opinions. To learn L'man ha'emes means to be open-minded and willing to hear what your friend has to say, even if it questions basic assumptions you might have had going into that sugya, going into that halacha, going into that part of the Gemara that you are learning about. And it takes practice, time, and patience, and ultimately the willingness that the truth, knowing the truth of Torah, trumps all the other considerations, all the other desires that you have as a human being to be right, to be heard, become outweighed by, but I want to know the truth. And I didn't think yet about that perspective on the sugya. It sounds crazy at first, but let me properly give it time, patience. Let me listen. Let me be open-minded. And you never know what you come out with like that. Let me really hear. Let me accept if I start to see that maybe my way of looking at it has holes in it, seems to be wrong. Let me be okay with that and accept it. And thereby gather more of the truth of Torah. And so real learning sharpens your ability to think, not only because of the complexities, the need to practice retaining in your mind long chains of logic, the need to always be brainstorming creative solutions to problems, but also it forces a person to develop intellectual integrity. Because there's no way you're going to come out with a beautiful answer that can answer Tosas's question but still fit nicely into the sugya. There's no way that that can happen if you don't have intellectual integrity, if you're not honest with yourself and say, I'm okay if what I'm thinking right now about is wrong. Let me hear what everyone has to say. Let me put it together. However much I contribute takes a back seat. I'm going to do my best, but that takes a back seat to what the truth is. And it forces you day after day after day to practice intellectual integrity and to make it ingrained within you. And that is one of the key components of a person living a righteous life. A life filled with self-honesty, honesty to others, and honesty to God, to Hashem. So many people are swayed and moved by rationalizations and being false and fake to themselves, to others, to God. And this forces you to sharpen that midah. So certainly in that very clear way, tangible way, almost physical way, Torah is an or, sharpens for us these midos. But of course, Torah and of course mitzvos have a spiritual component to them. Obviously, that's really what makes them so special and so different from any other intellectual pursuit. And that's the deeper level. That's the real level of the whole world. Klal Yisrael were sustained in a midbar miraculously. Every single waking minute of their existence was obvious miracles for years in the midbar. Then they went into Eretz Yisrael. What that did for them was ingrained within a whole generation, day after day, for years, that everything is really miraculous. That everything is the Ribono Shel Olam. He's the foundation of everything. And even though we're now going to go into a land flowing with milk and honey, and we're going to have animals out to pasture, and we're going to have farms to farm, everything really is still built on the foundation of the Ribono Shel Olam's Ratzon and spirituality. that less than tangible existence, but much more real existence, the spiritual realm. Learning Torah and doing mitzvahs shed light on that realm. Might look like a four-cornered garment with some strings hanging out. Most of you probably have gotten the question at one amusement park or some restaurant or walking on the street, what's with those strings? You're not ever sure exactly what to say. Should I start telling the guy the Gemaras? Should I just tell him we do it because it's our tradition? Should I tell him about how it reminds us of all the commandments? Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we also have stuff like that. It might look like two black boxes with some paper inside. But what really are these objects? They're not just randomly selected actions to fulfill Ratzon Hashem. They're causing unbelievable spiritual effects in the spiritual realm, the real realm that underlies everything in this physical realm. And that's what we're doing when we do the mitzvahs. The mitzvah lights up, it shines that flashlight on those objects, gives it a whole new reality, the real reality. And the Torah turns on the light. Imagine you're sitting at a cafe in Manhattan. To the right of you, you see two people schmoozing, looking around. To the left of you, you see two people sitting in a parked car. A block away, you notice a woman smoking a cigarette. What you see is what you get, right? Well, actually, the two people schmoozing down the street to the right are criminals planning their next robbery. The people in the car to the left are actually undercover detectives following and watching the criminals. And the woman a block away is a Russian spy observing how the NYPD detectives monitor their suspects. You had no idea. But here you have, in this mashal, two totally different levels of reality happening simultaneous to each other, and you're the innocent observer. Without that knowledge, you see some people doing nothing there, some people doing nothing there, a woman doing nothing there, and that's it. And if I asked you what you saw, you'd be right in telling me there's two people talking there, there's two people sitting in a car, there's a woman smoking a cigarette there. It's correct. But there's a much deeper level to that reality, with tremendous plans and plots internationally. I mean, we can make a movie out of that scene. And you're completely oblivious. Unless you have that knowledge. Unless you know. Imagine you're back at that street corner, and as someone else is walking by, they hand you a slip of paper that says, the two people over there are planning their next robbery. The two people over there are undercover detectives, and the woman over there is a Russian spy. And you're reading it, and you're like double taking, and now kind of revisiting all these things that you saw before and seeing them with a whole new light. That piece of paper is the Torah. The Torah opens the lights, shows us really what everything is in this world. Now, of course, that doesn't really help us on a tangible level so much. Intellectually, we can understand it, we can believe it, be'emunah shlema, but we can't grasp it and really feel it. When we learn the Gemara, we're not all of a sudden looking at the grass and seeing malachim flying underneath each blade of grass. Maybe there are some people that do see that. I don't. We're not all of a sudden seeing the whole spiritual realm with our eyes, with our physical bodies and our physical eyes all of a sudden. But there's a part of us that does see. Sometimes you can feel it a little bit, but it's a pretty intangible part of ourselves, the neshama. The spiritual part of ourselves absolutely connects to the spiritual existence of this world. And that happens much more naturally. It's just much less consciously clear to us. We're less consciously aware of it happening. But when we learn Torah, we're lighting up that spiritual part of ourselves, giving it the letter, the note, helping it be able to see what is the true reality of this world. So let's talk practically a little bit. We'll end with this. On Shavuos night, what are we doing? Famous question many ask. What's the pshat in this minhag? Staying up all night learning. If we use our brains and make some calculations, we'll get a lot more accomplished if we do some strategic planning of our sleep schedule, not just stay up all night. And by the time 3 a.m. hits, even 2 a.m., most people's learning is not at its optimal level. We could go to sleep for a few hours, wake up, have a morning seder. We can get a lot more accomplished if we kind of restructure the day with some simple calculations for most people. And yet we stay up all night and we make it through the davening. Make sure to get some good Lebedik tune for Kakeli to wake everyone up again. What are we doing? It's tough and it's hard to understand. But the answer to that question is exactly what the question is. We do it because it's not so understandable. We're doing it almost without thought. We're saying to ourselves and to the Ribono Shel Olam, the Torah is teaching us that there's a whole nother level of reality to this world that we can't really see. We can't really consciously understand. Yeah, the spiritual part of ourselves connects to it. And we know it, be'amunah shlema, that that's so important and that's why we do it. But we can't really feel it and see it and touch it. Well, on Shavuos night, the night of Matan Torah, when that beautiful light was opened for us, we say to the Ribono Shel Olam with our actions, we're just going to keep learning. But doesn't it make sense to go to sleep now? I don't care what makes sense. I'm going to keep connecting. I'm going to keep building that relationship. I'm going to keep gathering that objective morality. And I'm going to continue to connect to that Torah or to the light of what the real realm of this world is, the spiritual realm. But doesn't it make sense now? Stop with the sense. I'm done with that right now, for now. It's on pause. I'm just going. In a almost nonsensical way, I'm just going to continue. But what's going to be? I'm not making calculations. I'm just learning. I'm connecting in a way that doesn't make sense. It's very similar to an idea that they say about Purim and why some people drink on Purim. Why ad lo yada? Why till there's a point of losing a certain amount of sense? Because every once in a while, occasionally, generally, obviously, we operate with logic and with thinking and with whatever's going to make us accomplish the most and whatever's the most sense, whatever's the most sensical. But occasionally, there are special times of the year where we want to show the Ribono Shel Olam. By the way, Purim is also a Zman of Kabbalas HaTorah B'Ratzon. It's a whole other idea. I'll be the Medrash. Torah Sheba'al Peh. So we want to show the Ribono Shel Olam on these special times. Even if it doesn't make sense, we're going to do it because really there's a whole realm of existence that on the surface to our physical selves does not make sense, doesn't seem to be there. Much like the person sitting at that cafe without the letter being given to them, without that paper being given to them, it's oblivious to really deep things going on around them. We're showing Hashem, yeah, we're doing things that don't make so much sense because we recognize that the Torah really is the true reality, even though we don't see it so clearly throughout the rest of the year. We're willing to sacrifice the things that make sense to us, especially when they're at odds with the true reality of the Torah. Maybe it makes sense to eat right now because I'm hungry, but it's Yom Kippur, I'm not going to. Does that make sense from a physical standpoint? Of course not. Maybe it makes sense to sleep another half an hour. I went to sleep extra late last night, but I'm going to get up for Shacharis. I'm going to put these black boxes on my head. I'm going to put on the four-cornered garment with strings attached. I'm going to learn your Torah with these halachos that seem to have no application to my everyday life. But it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't matter. I know it makes sense on a much deeper, much more real and true level. And just knowing that is enough for me to want to do it passionately. So practically, speak out in English. A short tefillah. Just say the words, Hashem, please give us a little more and a little more of that understanding, of Torah understanding. Because it all comes through Siyata Dishmaya. So we can see more. The ability of the Torah to, on a superficial level, more superficial level, sharpen a person's mind, create intellectual integrity, that comes through working in Torah. Through working in it as an intellectual pursuit. The ability to retain Torah, to grasp Torah, to really begin to understand it, and more and more and more, and deeper, that comes through Siyata Dishmaya, Gemara tells us. Just speak it out in English. You could speak it out when you walk outside that door. You could speak it out tonight before you go to sleep. It takes a half a second. Hashem, please give me a little more understanding of your beautiful Torah. Tonight, tomorrow, whenever. On Shavuos night, it's the perfect time to actually say that tefillah. When you walk into the Beis Medrash they make the meal end really late so that the Seder is not too long, perhaps one of the cheshbonos. There's definitely a cheshbon of chatzi lachem. The meal should be very enjoyable. Sometimes it feels like they drag it out even a little extra than chatzi lachem. And you walk into the Beis Medrash, it's late already. What are you doing? It makes much more sense to go to sleep. And you think, one second, I'm about to engage in a pursuit that doesn't make so much sense on a physical level, but is so real, so much more real than all that other physical wisdom I might have about how much sleep I need and how much I need to eat or drink and all the other plannings. Walk into that Beis Medrash and just whisper under your breath, Hashem, please open my eyes and heart to your beautiful Torah. Hashem, please give me a little more understanding tonight in your beautiful Torah. And slowly but surely, it really makes an impression on a person. Not just on Shavuos, not just tonight and building up to Shavuos. Every single day, every time you daven Shemona Esrei, right before Yula Ratzon, before you take 3 steps back, just whisper one English sentence. Hashem, please give me more understanding in your beautiful Torah. Here you are in yeshiva, you're spending the vast majority of your waking hours of what you're accomplishing on Torah. That's the way your schedules are structured. Simple little tefillah to get that siyata dishmaya. And the tefillah doesn't just cause greater effects from Shamayim onto you, but speaking those words has an impact on you as you say them too, and as you repeat them day after day as well. It builds the emunah in the concept, and it allows you to feel more of a connection to it. Speak it out. Hashem, please give me a little more understanding in your beautiful Torah. And of course, you can always add, Hashem, please bring us back to a time with the Beis HaMikdash when Hashem will make that Torah light source so powerful and so clear and so bright, the entire world will see it. With the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu B'Meir V'Yameinu Amen. Have a great day.